The honourable member for...
Well, welcome back to another Stand on Guard episode. I'm your host, David Krayden, and we're trying to do a little bit of the question period here. I don't think we'll go all the way, but of course we're waiting for Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, to come back from hiding, where he's been ever since he invited a Nazi. Yes, he invited a Nazi through the Speaker. Apparently he knew all about it, and I believe the House Leader knew all about it too. We have a photograph of the House Leader sitting with the former Waffen-SS soldier, Yaroslav Hunka. And she said yesterday she knew nothing about it, and it was the Speaker's idea and the Speaker's alone. Sorry, folks, I find that impossible to believe because, as we all know in Canada, the Speaker does not have the powers of, say, the House Speaker in the United States. Speaker in the House of Commons does not control the legislative agenda, is merely a referee between the various players in Parliament. Keeps people from losing control, from the decorum being lost, from bad language being used, and from members referring to each other by name rather than the member from. So right now we're just going through the SO31s as usual. I think I explained yesterday. Those are member statements. They put a lot of effort and credence into these. They're 1-minute statements. Can't be any longer or the microphone goes off. And so you have to work on these things, make them meticulously on time. So you get all of your points in. And who cares if nobody is listening? And believe me, this part of question period is rarely ever listened to. So I'm going to let you listen in a minute. I just want to explain why we're here. We want to see if Trudeau is in the House today. He ducked the question period yesterday. Had his House Leader, Karina Gould, answer the questions for him. She did so very badly. Don't think Trudeau would have done any better. But see if he's here today, and if Mr. Poilievre, Conservative leader, raises the issue again. It certainly remains the number one thing on social media. Have a look. You look at words like Nazi, Waffen-SS. They're still continuing to be trending. And the story is huge internationally. I talked about it on various international platforms yesterday, and I'm going to continue today. But anyway, let's go to it now, and we'll await the first question from the Leader of the Official Opposition. Here, Paul.
Is an outrageous violation of our sovereignty. These allegations must be investigated and justice delivered. Many of our allies already have foreign agent registries. Conservatives introduced 2 bills 2 and 3 years ago to bring in a registry here to include agents from all countries, including India. Both bills were blocked by NDP and Liberals. Conservatives also moved a motion to create a foreign agent registry. On May 4th, 2023, all 4 Liberal members from Surrey voted against it, including the members from Surrey Centre and Surrey Newton. I'm calling on Liberals and NDP to take the threat of foreign interference seriously, act with urgency, and pass a foreign agency registry into law immediately.
The honourable member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, last Wednesday, we hosted an epic match of cricket at the Rideau Hall Cricket Grounds between the Commonwealth Diplomatic Corps and Canadian parliamentarians. It was a thrilling showdown between High Commissions and Canadian members of Parliament. Canada won. This match of cricket not only represented an opportunity to build relationships throughout the Commonwealth, but it also highlighted the growing sport of cricket here in Canada. Many members of Parliament and diplomats played cricket for the very first time last Wednesday. I want to thank everyone from the High Commissions, ministers, members of Parliament who participated in this match and for their support for cricket. Thank you as well to the Rideau Cricket Hall, the Rideau Hall Cricket Association and the Canadian branch for the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association for co-hosting and for promoting the sport of cricket right here in Canada and across the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to tell you about the honourable leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Many know him as the common sense leader this country needs. His school teacher parents know him as the boy they adopted and raised in their modest home in the suburbs of Calgary. His dad know him as the son he took to early morning hockey games. His neighbors know him as the boy who used to deliver the morning newspaper. His children know him in French, Spanish, and English as Papa. And I know him as a man who loves Canada and will fight to have it restored before this Liberal NDP government destroys our nation. We all know him as the next Prime Minister of Canada. So when our leader says it doesn't matter who you know or where you're from, but rather who you are and where you're going, these are just not empty words. He lived it. So common sense, let's bring it home. Bring it home.
The honourable member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, access to housing is worse than ever. In 2015, when Conservatives were in government and the Conservative leader was the Minister of Housing, rent for a one-bedroom apartment was $970 a month. Today, the same apartment is $1,900. A typical family home costs less than $450,000 with a typical mortgage payment of about $1,300. Now, the payment on that same home is over $3,500 and the down payment is double. When the Conservative leader was housing minister, the budget was balanced, inflation was 1.4%, and the Bank of Canada rate was half of 1%. After 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, inflation is at a 40-year high, the Bank of Canada rate is at 5%, because this Prime Minister has added more to the national debt than all other previous Prime Ministers combined. Canadians can't afford this government any longer. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost.
The honourable member for Mississauga Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in recognition
I just realized I had myself on mute, and I was trying to tell everybody something. I've just received this document from the government of Poland asking for the extradition of Yaroslav Hunka from Canada to Poland for possible criminal prosecution. I don't know details. The letter is written in Polish, and I'm informed that's what it's about. I need to do further research till I comment further on this, but it looks like it could be an extradition. I don't know why Poland would be asking for it, since Hunka was apparently from Ukraine, and I know Poland is very upset about Mr. Hunka's presence in Canada, and certainly he was involved. Possibly the regiment he was involved with was involved in a war crime in Poland, so that might have something to do with it.
Churchill, Kiwatanukowski.
But I'll let you know as soon as I do what's going on with this.
Part of an SS division that massacred Jews and Poles. But what is as shameful is the Prime Minister's,
as Nikki Ashton just reiterated, yes, this is a regiment that massacred Jews and Poles.
Let us not forget 1.1 million Canadians fought and 97,000 were killed or wounded fighting with our allies to liberate the world from the Nazis. Let us also not forget that we are a country that refused to admit Jewish refugees from Nazism in the 1930s, but admitted SS Nazi combatants in the 1950s. At a time when Canada and the world are seeing the rise of neo-Nazism and fascism, the Prime Minister has failed to speak out. As Santiana said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. In the name of the victims of Nazism, Jews, Poles, progressives, LGBTQ people, Roma, and millions of others, let us remember, let us learn from history, never again.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I'm pleased to mark the 30th anniversary of the Boisbriand Photo Club. Since 1993, this club has been offering a host of activities for learning and sharing knowledge about photography through conferences, outings, competitions, exhibitions, workshops, and much more. As an amateur photographer myself, I was recently blown away by this exceptionally dynamic club where talent, passion, creativity, and a concern for quality abound. Mr. Speaker, I'm not alone in this observation. In 2019, the Boisbriand Photo Club won Quebec's National Museum of Photography's Focus Award for Club of the Year. In 2020, in a field of 44 clubs, it was awarded second best photo club in Quebec at the SPPQ Gala. Congratulations to Club President Marc-André Thibaudot and all our members for these achievements. Long live artistic photography and amateur photographers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Lakeland.
After 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, life is so expensive. Chicken is up 35%, potatoes are up 68%, carrots are up 74%, and lettuce is up 94%. No wonder 7 million Canadians struggle to put food on the table. That pain takes a toll. It's due to the costly coalition's policies like the Carbon Tax 1 and the Carbon Tax 2 that hike the cost of everything and do nothing to reduce emissions. Gordy from Collinton says, quote, "My daughter and her husband have 4 kids. Trying to feed them all is a shock. They both have good paying jobs, but by the time you pay for rent, gas, power, and heating, you have to make a choice between eating or paying the bills." Well, that's what happens when you tax the farmer who grows the food and tax the trucker who ships the food and then tax the people who buy the food. Canadians are out of money, and this Prime Minister is just not worth the cost. Conservatives will turn hurt into hope so Canadians can look forward to the future. We'll use technology to reduce emissions and axe the taxes to bring home lower prices and make life affordable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Surrey Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today I speak for the first time as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Affairs. Last week we celebrated National Legion Week for the very first time. Since 1925, the Royal Canadian Legion has been providing support to veterans who have fought for their countries, our values, and our democracy. Through its 1,350 local branches across the country and its promotion of remembrance through the annual Poppy campaign, the Legion is doing what it can to make sure that Canadians never forget. The Legion is also a cornerstone in communities across the country. With one of the largest volunteer bases in the country, they are providing support to veterans and seniors, offering youth sports programs, volunteering to help those in need, or simply offering a place to gather for fun and celebration. I want to express my deep appreciation for all that Legionnaires do and for their tireless efforts to ensure that we remember the bravery, commitment, and sacrifice of those who have served their country. Lest we forget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good job. I just want to, before we get started, I just want to make sure that I know there's been some audio issues. Like we're not hearing the onlines, and I know that one was pretty low as well. So I just want to make sure the head audio gets pulled up maybe just a little bit. Oral questions, question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Le Président.
The Liberal Speaker resigned after the massive shame and embarrassment of having recognized a Nazi in the House of Commons. Our international reputation, though, is in the Prime Minister's hands. Diplomatic and intelligence services could have vetted the list of guests. And in fact, that vetting is the Prime Minister's responsibility. Today, the Prime Minister needs to take responsibility in order to reverse the massive damage done to our international reputation. Will he rise in this place and apologize for this massive and shameful failure? The Honourable House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, it is important to highlight that the Speaker of the House of Commons is independent and elected by all members of this House. I thank the Speaker for taking responsibility for his actions. As I said yesterday, and as he repeated just a few moments ago, it was his decision. He accepts responsibility for it, and I think that was the honourable and the right thing to do. The Honourable Opposition Leader. Yes, but the Prime Minister's intelligence and protocol services had the right to ask for lists of all those who would be recognized. What's more, the responsibility to defend Canada's reputation That is the Prime Minister's responsibility. We are currently experiencing the worst blow to our reputation in all of our history. So where's the Prime Minister? Where's he hiding? Why won't he rise in the House of Commons to defend Canadians' reputation?
No, Trudeau is not there again. He's stuck in question period for the second day in a row.
We cannot
And
say whether someone is
breaking news here.
in the chamber.
Speaker Anthony Rota has resigned. I must have missed that just before question period began. He must have just announced that. Speaker Anthony Rota has resigned.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The opposition leader knows full well the Speaker of the House resigned today. He accepted responsibility for the decision that he made on his own. He alone decided to invite and recognize that individual. As all members of this House know full well, it was shameful for us as members. It was shameful for Canadians. He took responsibility, and that was the honorable decision.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Speaker has taken the fall for this massive international shame and embarrassment. But the Prime Minister's protocol and intelligence units had the right to ask for the list of all those who would be present and recognized around a war leader from a country that is trying to defend its freedom from not only an invasion, but a propaganda war. The Prime Minister did not carry out that responsibility, and now our nation's reputation is in tatters. Will he stand up and apologize to Canadians, to the Jewish community, to the Ukrainian people, and to the entire world for this mess that he helped create?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, I feel that I have to remind the Leader of the Opposition this, although he knows it very well himself, that the Speaker of the House of Commons is independent. He is voted upon by all of the members of Parliament, and he is the Speaker of all parliamentarians. Mr. Speaker, we know, and the Leader opposite knows, that this was the decision solely of the Speaker of the House of Commons. He chose to invite this individual. He chose to recognize him without informing the government or the Ukrainian delegation. This was highly embarrassing. I accept his resignation, and I'm glad that he did it.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Minister says he's not responsible for our diplomatic reputation, even though that is precisely the job of the head of government. Like when he says he's not responsible for the inflationary spending that led prices and interest rates to rise faster than at any time in history. He's not responsible for housing costs doubling after he promised to lower them. He's not responsible for dressing up in racist costumes so many times he can't remember. That's all Canadians that needed to learn a lesson from his personal conduct. And now he says he's not responsible to vet the very people that come into contact with a visiting head of state. Is it that he's not responsible or that he's irresponsible?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
I would posit that the Leader of the Opposition is being very irresponsible right now in his accusations, when in fact he knows the truth, and it's why every party in this House has asked for the resignation, which has now been received by the Speaker of the House, because it was his decision and his decision alone to invite this individual and to recognize him in this chamber. The Leader of the Opposition knows this. He is irresponsibly politicizing this issue. This is something that has brought shame and embarrassment to all of Parliament and indeed all of Canadians, and the Speaker did the honourable thing in resigning. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, I am responsible enough to show up for work, Mr. Speaker. You know, I mean this literally. Has there ever been a greater diplomatic embarrassment in the history of our country? I mean it literally. In coffee shops and gyms and businesses and boardrooms around the world, people are reading about this massive and shameful disgrace that unfolded under the watch of a Liberal Speaker and a Liberal Prime Minister. And yet he can't even show up for work. Where is he, and why is he hiding under a rock today?
Order. I'm just going to stand here for a few minutes and see what goes on.
So Polyev again is making this about an apology to Zelensky. He's way off base with this. Zelensky is no problem hobnobbing with Nazis.
By the rules of this House. The Honorable Government House Leader, if she wants to answer it. I'll give her the option.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is precisely why the Speaker of the House announced his resignation, because he took responsibility for his actions that have hurt parliamentarians and have hurt all Canadians and indeed Canada's reputation. That is why every party in this House called for his resignation. But I do find it ironic, Mr. Speaker, that we have barely heard a word of support for Ukraine from the Leader of the Opposition until he sees political wedge issues and tries to politicize these issues.
That's the problem. Too much support for Ukraine.
Order.
In Zelensky. Zelensky the clown.
A long day, looks like.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, a question more about substance than style. The official opposition leader and I agree on something which is significant. The Prime Minister is not responsible for the mistake, but he is responsible for fixing it. He is head of state. It's his responsibility. So, does the Prime Minister intend to officially apologize on behalf of Canada and unfortunately still on behalf of Quebec? Does he intend to apologize to all those who suffered as a result of the dramatic and serious event which took place in this place? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for his question. The Speaker already apologized for the decision that he made. It was a shameful decision for all of us as members and for all Canadians. It was important that he take responsibility for his actions and decisions. Everyone in this House called for his resignation. He did so, and that was the honourable choice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. After 6 questions, it's hard to believe that the Government House Leader hasn't yet understood that the responsibility of the Prime Minister and the responsibility of the House are not one and the same. The Prime Minister needs to assume his responsibilities as head of state, as a head of government. So he needs to apologize to the Jewish community in Quebec, in Canada, and around the world. He needs to apologize to all parliamentarians and to all Canadians, and he must specifically apologize to President Zelensky because this event made him target of Russian propaganda. The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said yesterday, I am a Canadian of Jewish origin. I am the descendant of a Holocaust survivor. This incident hurt me personally, as it hurt all members of this House and all Canadians. The incident also hurt President Zelensky. The Speaker of the House apologized and took responsibility for his decision, which was shameful and painful for us all. He did the responsible thing by resigning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Yesterday, it was manufacturers' turn to be summoned by the Innovation Minister. The minister knows full well that they have jacked up prices because he's only asking them to stabilize prices. After the meeting, the minister said that inaction is not an option, except that that is exactly what he's been doing for the past 2 years. Will the minister make a commitment to Canadian families? Will he commit to them that their Thanksgiving meal will cost less this year than it did last year? The Honourable Innovation Minister. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for the question. I'm happy to hear that he also has read that we've said that inaction is not an option. That is why we summoned major grocers in Canada to ask them to stabilize prices in Canada. And I expressed to them the frustration of 40 million Canadians. I told them that the number one issue that matters to Canadians is the cost of living, affordability, and grocery prices. That's why, Mr. Speaker, we tabled Bill C-56, which will address competition because we want more competition in Canada. And I hope the colleague will support that bill so that we can move forward. Liberal inaction is too costly.
We have in Halifax a very serious situation. People currently living in a campground fear they'll be homeless when it closes for the season because there's simply nowhere else for them to go. These people have worked hard, they've got jobs, some live in the campground, some work there, but there's simply no other housing for them to rent in the surrounding area. They don't have months to wait for the government to approve new housing. They'll be homeless in weeks. This is the result of a prime minister who could have and should have built more affordable housing, but didn't. What will the prime minister tell them when they're homeless in a few weeks?
The Honourable Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with my honourable colleague, the need to continue to invest in affordable housing, including in the city of Halifax, including in my home province of Nova Scotia. I point out to the honourable member right now, as we speak, the City Council in Halifax is actually debating a motion to change the way that they permit homes to be built as a result of the Housing Accelerator Fund that's going to yield more homes for people who live in the city of Halifax. In addition to changing the way cities build homes, we're putting incentives on the table to get more homes built, and we're going to work with jurisdictions that have local authority to figure out how we can continue to increase the affordable housing stock as we have been for the last number of years. I'm going to be pleased to work with my honourable colleague to advance solutions for some of the most vulnerable people in Canada.
Member for Thornhill.
The Speaker of the House took the fall and the Prime Minister continues to blame everyone else. A full-blown international embarrassment for our country, for our allies, and for everything this nation did to defeat the Nazis. An actual Nazi invited to the House of Commons, welcomed, and celebrated as a hero. And a government that vetted everyone here. Shame. The PM has called Canadian citizens Nazis. Will he muster the courage and stand up on his feet today and take responsibility?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, we're going to hear the same.
I think we all feel the deep embarrassment and shame of what happened on Friday. Had anyone in this House known what the Speaker was going to do ahead of time and who this person was, I am certain that not a single person would have stood in this House of Commons. But the fact of the matter is, and my Conservative colleagues know this, that neither the Prime Minister nor the government nor the Ukrainian delegation or any parliamentarian in this place knew ahead of time. It was the Speaker's decision. He's taken responsibility and he has resigned. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Thornhill.
The minister who is now whispering was louder when she also painted Canadians as Nazis, and she can't bring herself to apologize for an actual Nazi this government vetted. Worse even, she tried to strike it from the historical record of this House as if it never happened.
Exactly.
A descendant of Holocaust survivors distorting the Holocaust. You should be ashamed of yourself. I don't know how many.
Just a reminder for all questions and comments to be through the chair. The Honourable Member for Thornhill, you have about 5 seconds left there.
many times I'm going to have to ask this Prime Minister for an apology that he has slandered, dishonored, and embarrassed Holocaust survivors, but I think 2 times is too many.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, while the member opposite tries to personally attack me, I will actually stay focused on the facts.
You're a joke, Karina Gould.
As well as every other member in this House, is that it was the Speaker who decided to invite this individual. It was the Speaker who acknowledged that he was going to acknowledge him in the chamber. No one in this chamber knew ahead of time of who he was. The Speaker has taken full responsibility for this. He has resigned. It was the right thing to do. It was the honorable thing to do, and it is something that had to be done.
Well, folks, that is all we're going to hear today about this issue. So clearly, the Speaker took the bullet for Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau didn't even have the decency to show up in the House of Commons for 2 days while this debate was going on. While these questions are being asked, he couldn't be bothered to show up. And he really doesn't get it. That's what this says. Does that surprise any of us, though, that Justin Trudeau doesn't give a damn about these issues? I'm upset. I'm disappointed the way Poilievre's framing this. Like it's a slight to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. It's a slight to Ukraine. It's a slight to Canadians. It's a slight to Canadian veteran. That's who it's a slight to. That's why it's an embarrassment.
They also called on the Speaker's resignation this morning.
Damn it, that's what this is about. I'm not hearing that from the opposition. But of course, the Liberals are going to continue to deny, to distract, project their own inadequacies on other people. And the Speaker has clearly been thrown under the bus for this. But don't think for a minute Trudeau didn't know, and I believe Gould knew too. And there's a lot of mendacity going on here, but what else is new from the Trudeau government? Shameful, absolutely shameful. I've written about this extensively. I don't know what else I can say. This has been a sad moment in Canadian history, but just another day in the government of Justin Trudeau. Thanks for listening today. I'll be back again tomorrow, and we will continue to follow this story because it's not over. It never is. It never is over. It's over when Justin Trudeau is no longer Prime Minister. And then we got to keep on the new Prime Minister, to be honest, and to be principled. That's all. Thanks for watching today. It's David Krayden for Stand on Guard. You're watching the Krayden's Right channel. Thank you.